Welcome to Currents Up Close. We're here today talking about bicycles and pedestrians in Cedar Falls. I am Karen Smith from the Cedar Falls Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and I have two guests with me here today, Roger White, who's the chair of that advisory committee, and David Sturch, who's the City of Cedar Falls staff liaison for that committee. And we're talking right now in this segment a little bit about the mission of that group and also some of the infrastructure and amenities that Cedar Falls has in terms of bicycling. So just to start off, you're the chair of the Pedestrian Advisory Committee. So what is the mission of that committee?
Well, the mission is to improve the quality of life in Cedar Falls through increased opportunity for safe walking and bicycling as a viable means of transportation and physical activity. Nice formal mission statement, but it sums up what our purpose is. Access and safety for walking and biking.
Great. And in the committee, we work a lot on issues related to on-road infrastructure, but also trails. And of course, the Cedar Valley area has a large trail network. What types of trails do we have available in the area?
Well, there's over 100 miles in the metro area, outside of, it includes beyond Cedar Falls, but 100 miles of paved trails. These are multi-use, sometimes referred to as recreational trails, but you can use them to get from point A to point B sometimes, if the trail goes there. In addition to that, there are numerous soft trails or mountain bike trails that have been groomed in George Wythe State Park and what they call the north unit of Hartman Reserve, north of the gravel road that runs down below near the river. And there are also trails over in Waterloo at the Riverview Recreation Area. Those are soft trails also. Wonderful.
And then we also obviously have on-road accommodations too for bicycles throughout Cedar Falls. And we brought David here today to talk a little bit about the infrastructure in the city and where we are going with, we are a bronze, correct? Bronze stature.
The League of American Bicyclists has designated Cedar Falls as a bronze bike-friendly community, and it goes all the way up to platinum, which is 4 or 5 steps up, but we're at the entry level as bronze.
And so one of the goals of the committee is it to kind of keep working up in the levels?
Exactly. It is our hope that when we make the next application within the next year, that we'll have enough achieved, we'll met enough benchmarks that we can first get recertified as a bike-friendly community, but hopefully to a higher level, perhaps silver, or maybe even gold. I don't think we're ready for platinum yet, but there's always hope.
Great. Well, David, can you talk about some of the projects going on through the city of Cedar Falls for that are some of those projects that kind of get us towards moving towards more bike-friendly accommodations?
Yes, I can do that. Thanks, Karen. Every year we look at potential projects, either on-road or off-road for recreational trail users. And during our annual street reconstruction program, we evaluate those type of facilities, and just wanted to basically brief everyone here on what's going on this year. We've got 4 projects, beginning with College Street from 12th to 14th Street, and then State Street from 7th to 12th. And both of those are reconstruction projects, and those will include shared lane markings on both those roadways. And those are kind of a continuation of previous year projects for those type of facilities. So we can't get everything done on an annual basis, but we try to break those up on 2 to 3 year cycles. So we want to get a nice long segment of bike accommodations for those 2 projects. A couple more is kind of a first portion of West 4th Street over by in front of Hanson and Holmes Elementary School. That's from Angie to Barnett, and those are including new signs for Share the Road. Again, that's kind of a first end of those projects. We want to continue that east and west and eventually into downtown area for bicycle accommodations along that corridor. Then finally brings us to Cedar Heights, the Orchard Drive project, and that's from Veralta over to Cedar Heights, and that's an overlay, asphalt overlay project. And again, those will be may use full lane signs. And again, that's kind of the final phase of the whole Orchard Drive corridor, from all the way from Main Street all the way over to Cedar Heights Drive, to have that awareness, to have those signs present, just to make those motorists realize that there's bikes present and they're going to be using those lanes. Along with those projects, we have currently University Avenue project. Everybody knows that that's under construction now. And that project will include new pedestrian and bicycle accommodations, which there are not any present right now. So we plan to be doing a trail along the south side of the road, and then a new pedestrian sidewalk on the north side of the road. So that'll be throughout the next 2 or 3 years for that construction. And then finally, we're just starting to look at planning some new accommodations up along Center Street, basically from North Cottage Row Road up to Lone Tree Road. So we want to add some improved pedestrian connections, accommodations, and then more recreational users for the bike trails along that corridor.
Great. So it sounds like it really is kind of an integral part of planning as you're looking at different road projects, how pedestrians and bicycles will fit in.
Yeah, it's all part of the 5-year program. So we kind of look out in the next 2 or 3 years to see exactly what we can use and what type of accommodations we can put along those corridors. As Roger mentioned, we have the plan and our designation. So we try to develop some ideas for those future projects to match the plan, and again, try to jump up to maybe a silver or a gold status.
Mm-hmm.
The plan that David's referring to, the Cedar Falls City Council adopted a bike plan, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago now. It's several years ago. And it lays out a network of planned bike accommodations throughout the community, and our committee looks at those projects that the engineering department is coming up with each year as far as repair or replacement or rebuilding, and we advise with regard to the accommodations for pedestrian and bicyclists. We have a plan for the bicyclist. We don't have a pedestrian plan yet. Hopefully that'll come in the future. We have a citywide pedestrian plan. The 5 areas that we look at as a committee with regard to the bicycle-friendly application, one is engineering, which is putting together the plan, and then there's education, and our session today is part of our education. We also did a bike rodeo this past weekend out at Hanson School. That's part of education also for students. Encouragement, again, this segment is part of the encouragement also. Enforcement, which there isn't a lot of enforcement involved. One of the things that our local law enforcement can and do enforce is that when you're riding a bicycle on the public streets or roads, a bicycle under Iowa law is considered a vehicle just like a motorized vehicle, and the bicyclist should be following the same rules of the road as the motorists are when they are on that stretch of public road. You drive in the appropriate lane, the right lane. You signal when you're turning, when you stop. You stop for all stop signs and stop lights. You yield at yield signs. You pass appropriately, which, according to the Department of Education or Department of Transportation, when a vehicle is passing a bicyclist, they should be passing in the adjoining lane, not try to pass in the same lane. So those are some enforcement things. And then finally, evaluation. We evaluate the progress that we made, and we'll be doing that over this course of this year. Each month we do a little bit more of it. And then we'll have a summary document at the end that can be part of our next year's application when we do that.
Great. Well, it seems like there's a lot of areas to look at, and those are some great tips too about kind of the rules of the road as we go along. And obviously there's a lot of planning involved at all levels to kind of get this this whole package going and try to move up in the stature. Well, we know that there are a lot of activities in Cedar Falls for bicyclists, so maybe we'll take a little bit of a break, and then Roger and I can talk about some of the groups in Cedar Falls that support bicycling and help us get to the trails during the summer, and talk about some of the events going on this summer, specifically with bicycling in Cedar Falls.
Yeah. Cool. Smokey just gave me a bear hug.
I know. Already posted it.
Welcome to Understood.org, a free online resource for parents of kids with learning and attention issues, with personalized recommendations, tools, and daily access to experts to help your child thrive. Understood.org, because understanding is everything.
Welcome back to Currents Up Close. I'm here with Roger White, and we are talking about bicycle and pedestrian accommodations and activities in Cedar Falls. Right now we want to talk a little bit about safe bicycling habits and safety on the road, and then we'll move into talking a little bit about some of the events and clubs and groups that have bicycling activities this summer. So Roger, can you talk a little bit about what are some of the kind of basic rules of the road that we need to know as a cyclist, or some safety tips that you might have?
Absolutely. Thank you, Karen, for the opportunity. The most important thing when you're riding a bicycle is have a helmet that's properly fitted and properly adjusted. And the bike shops that sell them will also be able to help get you fitted. But the key rule is have the front of the helmet 2 fingers above your eyelids, and the strap no more than 2 fingers between the strap and your chin, so it's not too loose. And that will hold it in straight on your head so that it will do you the most good. Most parts of our body will heal if they're damaged, not so much with the brain. And so the most important thing is to have that helmet and be wearing it all the time. When you're trail riding, when you're roading in the street, it doesn't make any difference. You still can have an accident. You don't plan it, I know, but it still happens, and you want to protect that most valuable component inside your head, your brain. In addition to that, when you're riding on the streets, now in Cedar Falls we have a lot of streets that are part of our bike network that are marked with a sign, bicyclists may use full lane. What that means is that is a planned part of the bicycle network, and it's anticipated there will be bicycles out there at times, and motorists need to be aware of that, and they need to be treating that bicyclist like another vehicle, and if they're going to overtake them, they need to move into the opposing lane and go around them and basically allow the cyclist to have that full right-hand lane. Some of the other important things for the motorist is to realize that the cyclist is not going the same speed you are, and so you're going to come up on them more quickly. So when you see a bike ahead of you, you want to slow down and be prepared to do a safe pass. Make sure there's no one coming in the other lane, and so forth. As far as the bicyclist, needs to have the helmet on, needs to be riding in the right-hand lane, unless they're making a left turn. Then if they've signaled properly, it's okay to move to the left lane to make that left turn. They need to signal when they're changing lanes or when they're turning. They need to stop at all stop signs and stoplights, and at yield signs they need to yield. So they need to follow all the usual rules of the road. And if they have their helmet on and they're following the rules of the road, they will be much safer. Bikes should be equipped with lights anytime, but certainly at night. If it's at night, it's required by Iowa law to have a white light in the front and a light in the back, or the law does allow a reflector. A reflector is, quite frankly, not good enough. You should have a light that actually will have a battery and will shine a light for the rear also. It has to be red. in the rear.
Okay, great.
So those are some general safety tips. The Department of Transportation has a kind of a cute saying about wearing helmets: don't hit the road without it. And that's true for the trail also. Don't hit the trail without it.
Yeah, great. Well, that's a really nice summary of some of the key features that you need to think about. We also have a lot of recreational trails. Can you just give us a brief idea of how should we be working together on those trails with bicyclists, kids, baby carriages, and all of those things?
Well, you start out by riding on the right-hand side, and preferably single file. Unless there's nobody in sight, it's okay to double up, but you need to then be prepared to get into single file. You need to yield to the other folks out there. If you're overtaking a walker, a baby carriage, a rollerblader, whatever the other person is, you need to move into the far left and to make sure it's okay, that it's open, that you're not cutting someone off or putting someone coming at you in danger. And then complete the pass and move back over to the right-hand lane. If you're stopping for any reason, and it's okay to stop, to sightsee, to look at flowers, to look for birds, whatever, make sure you stop and pull completely off the trail. Get your bike and all of your equipment off the trail. That should be also true of strollers and baby carriages. When you're stopping, they need to be completely off the trail and not obstructing it. And just yield for other vehicles. Announce when you're passing. You never should surprise somebody by coming by them without first having notified that you're passing on the left or on the left, or some way where you call out. I know some people have little horns or bells on their bikes. That works too, but I prefer to do the call out so they can hear my voice and know that I'm back there. Now, the frustrating thing sometimes is so many people are out, particularly if they're joggers, they have earbuds in and they're not hearing you. So you really need to yell pretty loud to make sure that they're hearing you. And that's really not safe for the runner to have their sound up so loud that they're not hearing what's around them. That's not safe at all. And so, this is not bike related, but really it is, because bicyclists coming behind these people and trying to announce their presence, and it's hard to do when the other party has their sound up on their player so loud that they're not hearing the other sound.
Great. Well, those are really helpful, specific tips. Let's take our last 5 minutes or so and talk about some of the great bicycling groups and organizations that we have here that support bicycling more generally and that help people get involved. What are some of those groups and organizations in this area?
Well, there's my favorite, Cedar Valley Cyclist, which I'm on the board for and involved with a number of their activities. They're a nonprofit, primarily recreational and safety-oriented bike club. We have rides periodically throughout the year, and in the summer, every Wednesday night for sure, we have a ride downtown Cedar Falls we call the WOW Ride, Wednesday on Wheels. In addition to Cedar Valley Cyclist, there is another group that's promoting the soft trail use, the trails on the non-paved trails in George Wythe and North Unit of Hartman. And they go by the acronym CVAST, which is Cedar Valley Association of Soft Trails. They're also a nonprofit group, and they not only ride the trails, but they also spend time grooming them so that they're nice, off-road trails. There's the Cedar Valley Bicycle Collective in Waterloo. This is a group that is primarily focused on recycling bikes and getting bikes into the hands of people who may not be able to afford a brand new bike. So they take bikes that they get from people donating them, from the police department, from abandoned bikes. They refurbish them, put them on the floor to sell, and they sell them reasonably, and then get them out in the community. So those are the three primary groups. There are some smaller groups too. There's a Team Flamingos, which is a RAGBRAI group, and there's some other groups. But the three, the Cedar Valley Cyclist, Cedar Valley Association of Soft Trails, and Cedar Valley Bicycle Collective are the three primary groups that are advocating bicycle use and safety.
Okay, wonderful. And I know that this summer there are some big rides coming up if people want to get involved in. Some of them are a little more endurance based and some are a little bit more fun. The first I think we were going to talk about is the Sturgis Falls ride. And what can you tell us about that?
Well, the Cedar Valley Cyclist has for many, many, many years had a ride in conjunction with Sturgis Falls. It's Saturday morning before the parade. In the last few years, we've started at the Recreation Center on 12th Street, and we actually ride down Main Street, down the parade route, and some of the spectators are already queuing up, so they think the parade has begun. And there's a choice. You have it's usually a 25, 30-mile ride and a longer one, more like 50, 55-mile ride. And those are all on roads. And so that's a way of helping us celebrate Sturgis Falls. And then there are, of course, other rides also. As I think you're going there next.
Yep, the new ride this year is a fun one. It's the Cedar Valley Pedal Fest, and it sounds like they have a lot of different types of rides.
They do, and I won't even be able to give you the full list, but this is July 2 and 3. It's 2 days, the Saturday and Sunday before the 4th of July holiday. And there will be a variety of rides around town. There will also be 4 longer rides that Cedar Valley Cyclist is going to be working with, and those will be primarily, well, not all entirely road rides. The one on Saturday will be the Bridge to Bridge ride, which we've had for several years since the bridges have been rebuilt over the Cedar that went out in the flood. And so we're incorporating that Bridge to Bridge ride into the Pedal Fest this year. That'll be on Saturday, July 2nd. And it'll ride to Gilbertville and then to LaPorte City and celebrate the new bridge at McFarland Park east of LaPorte City and the new one at Evansdale that opened the trail back up that was severed after the flood. In addition to that, there's going to be a library ride, and I can't tell you which days these are, but there's a website and a Facebook page where you can get all this information. But a library ride, a popcorn ride, a mayor's ride where current and former mayors from I believe the surrounding communities, not just Cedar Falls, are going to take people around town on a ride. We have a ride through UNI. There's a cemetery ride in the evening. An ice cream ride going from Four Queens to Four Queens over in Evansdale, and lots more opportunities. So a lot of fun.
That's wonderful.
And then, of course, the last one is the Grand Fondo, which will be on August the 20th in conjunction with the Iowa Bicycle Coalition.
Wonderful, and that will be towards the end of the summer, so we'll have plenty more time to learn more about that before it happens. And that is wrapping up our show. Thank you so much for being here today, Roger, and thank you also to David Sturch. You can learn a lot more online and on Facebook about what we are doing with the Cedar Falls Bicycle and Advisory Committee and all of these great organizations and rides throughout the summer. So safe bicycling.
Thank you, Karen.